I am an artist, and my number one passion in life is wildlife conservation and our natural surroundings. I have made it my mission to use my skills as a way to promote the preservation of all living things on the planet. And my question is this: can art communicate issues as big as extinction? I'm going to take you on a journey through my art as a way to address this question, and I'd like you to decide the answer at the end. Sometimes it all starts with just a plastic bottle on the beach. I tend to make work on a very large scale, much bigger than me, and that is because I am inspired by nature and its magnificent size compared to our own. If you asked me to draw a tree onto an A4 sketch pad, I would really struggle, because the thing that I love about that tree is the way its branches stretch out above us into the sky. And I can't capture that feeling on an A4 sketch pad. It just isn't going to happen. I fear that something will be lost in the process. But if you give me a piece of paper the size of this branch, I will roll that piece of paper out onto the forest floor and use charcoal to draw it. And if you think about it, all these materials come from a tree. The paper, the charcoal, and the bits of bark that fall onto it. Something about the essence of that place is captured. This is a series of work I made at art school, and I was thinking about the journey of a tree throughout its lifetime and beyond. Our relationship with trees, how we use them as a resource. We chop them down, and we process them into furniture, fuel, paper, packaging. The object furthest from me, the round one, that is a sculpture I made of a tree slice from hundreds of cardboard boxes. I collected these boxes, opened them out, and rolled them into tree rings, each layer representing a year of a tree's life. If this were a real tree, it would be over 200 years old. And I wanted this sculpture to be bigger than any human being, as trees are. I wanted my audience to look up at them as we do trees. I wanted to make objects that remember where these materials came from. Art school taught me that every mark I make has to be a very deliberate and considered one, from the tool you use to make it to the shape left behind. It is layered with meaning. Even if that mark may look simple or random, there's a story behind why it is made. And as artists, we are always faced with a constant battle when it's time to present your work in a gallery space. I work in a very chaotic studio and often outside. So bringing that work into a pristine, clear environment is very difficult for me sometimes. But it's also a very good thing to be able to hang your work on a wall without any distractions and really focus on it. This is a group show, and mine are a series of photographs furthest away from me in this image. They are photographs of drawings I made in the sand on beaches in Cornwall at the tip of the UK. They are life-size, endangered marine mammals. These whales in the ocean are very big. And the thing that is lost in this exhibition is that sense of scale. So I asked the gallery owner if I could use the meadow outside, and with the help of a gardener, we cut grass the length of a whale. And I asked my audience to walk that line from beginning to end. To give you some idea of how long this line is and how big whales are, a full-grown whale wouldn't fit in this room. We would need 3 rooms for a full-grown whale. We would all fit inside its body. And this work, although it's not visually appealing, it appeals to other senses. It makes us think about our bodies in relation to other mammals on the planet. Are there really creatures that big, the size of buildings, that have hearts and brains like us? How big must their brains be? I will also present my stick in an exhibition as well, alongside these photographs. This is the stick that I draw every sand drawing with. I found it on a beach, and it's probably been in and out to sea many times. It's the only thing that exists before I make a drawing in the sand, and it is the only thing that exists afterwards as well, because the drawings themselves get washed away with the tides. So this is the only thing that is real next to the photographs. When I moved to Cornwall, I was surrounded by ocean. I spent a lot of my time on coastal walks, sitting on beaches, at the water's edge, contemplating the life that happens out there under the water. This is a drawing I made for a fashion show in London. It is a life-size Hammerhead Shark. In real life, it probably would fill this entire screen. And I drew it directly onto the wall in charcoal. The fashion show was all about raising awareness of ocean conservation issues. So all of the clothes were made and inspired by ocean conservation. I drew the notorious Hammerhead Shark because it is at crisis point. They are critically endangered due to the way we have taken too many fish out of the sea, and we also hunt them for their fins to make shark fin soup. Even through the course of the evening, this drawing started to fade, and the next day it would be painted over. These creatures really are on the brink of extinction. I also do art workshops. This is a photograph of a drawing I made in the grass at a primary school. I used chalk spray to draw a life-size humpback whale calf with the kids watching. It is a collaborative project. We then planted 2,500 crocus bulbs within the shapes, which are now blooming and flowering as I do this talk this spring. We hope that it will return each year, just like whales migrate across oceans, returning to the same spot each year. I was invited on an artist residency in the Azores with marine conservation research. The Azores are a group of volcanic islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I spent nearly a month sailing and studying these creatures with the researchers, and it was an inspiring trip. We were always surrounded by marine life in their natural surroundings. The boat had equipment that also detected the sounds of whales and dolphins underwater. So even if you couldn't see them night and day, you could hear them. It really inspired me to keep on making work that celebrates these creatures, but also raise awareness about the environmental issues. Even out there, in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, there was still plastic pollution in the sea and on the beaches. This is a line I painted, the length of a whale again, in a marina, also in the Azores. I painted it next to some wooden boats that were used for hunting whales up until the late 80s. The interesting thing about where I placed it was how you could see that the length of a whale is so much longer than the boats they used to hunt them. And it's scary to think how dangerous it must have been for those huntsmen out there in the sea. This is me again in the Azores, starting to draw a sperm whale on the beach. This is probably one of the most symbolic drawings I have ever made, for quite a few reasons. I didn't have my stick, so the crew lent me a long pole that they use to untangle whales from fishing gear sometimes. Fishing gear comes loose from boats quite often, and it continues to trap creatures in the sea. So this is a very important piece of equipment for saving animals in distress. I'm also drawing on a historic whaling beach where sperm whales would have been killed and then dragged up onto that very spot. The way I make a drawing is to make a mark and then pace the average length of the species that I'm drawing. And then I make another mark, and then I draw the outline. This is a beach in Cornwall. This is the sperm whale in the Azores, and you can see the whaling station with a ramp where the whales were dragged up and processed. This is me drawing a tail, and it's very difficult for me to see what I'm doing at ground level. It just looks like abstract shapes. But from above, it quickly starts to take shape. This is a blue whale at about 30 meters long, 3 times the size of this room. They are the largest living creature on Earth. And this is a complete drawing. And you can get a sense of how big it is by the 2 people standing at the tail end. It's a northwestern Pacific grey whale, and they are thought to be one of the most endangered species that we know of today. This is a grey whale again, and a man selling ice cream on a motorbike was driving along this beach. It's about 3 miles long, and he was going to drive over this drawing. You can see his tracks, but he veered along it. And what's amazing is that a man and a machine is still so much smaller than this whale. This is a grey whale, the same one, but from a different angle, more above it. And the patterns in the sand make it look like it's swimming or somehow alive. These patterns are made by a black pigment in the sand that when the water moves over it, it kind of creates marks that are very watery. And that particular day was very windy, and the water was swirling around in all sorts of directions. So when the tide went out, it left these crazy patterns in the sand. And all I've done is draw into it. This is a sperm whale. And this is a narwhal. They're very unusual creatures living in the Arctic all year round. And they have these tusks that they can reach about 2 meters long. Life size again. I always make the drawings by cliff tops so that people can watch and contemplate the life out in the sea and also watch my drawing get washed away. And as the tide moves over the drawing, it starts to disappear. And it's like a metaphor for the fragility these creatures face on the brink of extinction. And what we don't want is for them to completely go, as my drawings do. All of my work is made in very public places. sparking conversations, leading to actions, education, and wonder. If someone sees a drawing of mine that leads them to pick up a piece of plastic litter that would otherwise end up in the sea, they are actively helping to preserve the marine habitat and marine life. I see it as a ripple effect. Can art communicate issues as big as extinction? That is up to you to decide. Thank you.